Welcome. This is the Emergence Guest Speaker Series, focusing on themes surrounding the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on February 20th, 2026. I'm your host, Marina Orms, and I am chatting with some wonderful guests to help you navigate the changing times and work with these important transits to help us shape the future in the best possible ways. More details about this series are available at transformationalastrology.com, where you can sign up for a free account to get early access to each guest speaker's video. So transformationalastrology.com, sign up for a free account there, and you will be notified of this and future events. You can also see all the videos there in one place. And with that, I'm super excited to welcome our next speaker in this series, Dabney Lawless. Dabney helps people live a more conscious, productive, and peace-filled life using astrology as a guide. She's an evolutionary astrologer who trained with well-known author and astrologer Stephen Forrest over a 20-year period, achieving his master-level apprenticeship certification. She offers her clients a roadmap to navigate life's many ups and downs, find meaning, and discover a true appreciation for the gifts that they have brought into this world. Welcome, Dabney.
Thank you so much, Marina. What a cool series that you're doing. This is it's such a big, transformational time. So it's really cool to get the different perspectives from different astrologers. So thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being here. And it has been super fun. And you and I share this experience of working with Stephen Forrest. So that'll be fun to kind of see our different experiences and perspectives on evolutionary astrology. And I'm excited too that you're bringing in this piece that we haven't really dived into yet, which has to do with how do we use this time, this Saturn-Neptune conjunction and all the other alignments that are happening this year, as an opportunity to do our healing work?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I want to start off by saying I'm not a therapist. I am an astrologer. But as an astrologer who's been in practice for 20 years, I do consider myself a counselor. And I have been somebody who has experienced my own trauma from childhood, adolescence. We all have things that we're working through, and astrology has been one of the primary tools that has grounded me and given me a roadmap to break free from limiting patterns and stories that were born when I had no control over anything, right? And so it kind of has given me this new way of looking at trauma that then is much more empowering versus it's kind of like the survivor versus the victim language.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been my experience too that astrology is just so rich in helping us to go inside of ourselves. And of course, the world is a hard place sometimes. And how
Especially
we,
right now.
yeah, totally. So just finding those inner resources and how astrology and the symbolism can help us deepen into that.
Yeah. Yeah, so when I was first learning astrology, I actually it came from a trauma of sorts, and we also see that a lot of clients that come to us, they come when they are, kind of rolling around on the floor crying, lost in some way, like needing guidance, needing somebody to give them hope that this will someday end, right? I mean, that is oftentimes what us astrologers do is kind of, at least the kind of clients that come to me, they're grappling with something, whether it's a life decision or something that, a recent breakup. And so when I first discovered astrology, well, I've been a lifelong I've loved astrology since go, right?
Mm.
But when I realized like I could become an astrologer and when I found Stephen Forrest was after really, my first real heartbreak where I had that depression where you couldn't get out of bed and you actually lose weight, which like for me is like unheard of. And I went and saw an astrologer really kind of looking for that guidance and hope and like something to like help me get out of bed in the morning. And it was just miserable. It was like a terrible reading. And so I just really, in that moment, it was almost like the fire and the inspiration. And I drove to like a metaphysical bookstore and I found Stephen Forrest's book. And I was like, I could do a better job than this woman just did. And that was like the beginning of, my astrology career because it all just sort of clicked into place. And that's when I found Stephen. And, because back then, the good old days, like, we had the internet, but like barely any astrology on it. And it was like, if you're interested in the apprenticeship program, like, here's the place to right away and find out more. So
Right.
definitely old school, dating myself for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So that's so interesting though that was through a bad reading that you actually kind of stumbled on how this information and this work could truly be helpful. Was there something that spoke to you that said, don't let this be the end, but keep looking?
100%. I mean, I think that's what astrology can do for people is I kept feeling like there was something wrong with me. And I
Mhm.
think that, and this kind of goes back to the healing and the trauma piece of it, is we get these messages early in life that there's something wrong with us, whether it's from our family, a siblings, society, a grandparent, kids at school, or all of the above, right? We
Yeah.
internalize messages that we've done something wrong because we don't fit in the way that we should fit in. Now, some people fit in really well, but that's not necessarily their authentic self either, right? And so there's trauma around that. And so no matter what your circumstances, a little about my story. I grew up very poor. I like, pretty, the kind of poverty where we ate government cheese, kind of, I was bullied a lot as a kid. It was an abusive household, a lot of mental illness in the family. So, I've come up to a place where I feel very blessed, but I think a lot of people who have kind of more challenging upbringings, whether it's, physical or sexual abuse or, poverty, mental illness, all of these things, there can be a hopelessness. There can
Mhm.
be there's something wrong with me. I'm marked, I'm cursed. These are kind of some of the things that people feel. And as somebody that works in kind of more the metaphysical, spiritual realms, I do know that, and I've seen it from my own life and with other people, that if you're not conscious and you're not aware of working with the planetary energy or whatever archetypal, works for you, like whatever the thing is that works for you, if you don't have something to ground you, you can get very lost and repeat patterns over and over again. And so then it's just like kind of drawing negativity to you over and over again that becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you already feel like you're a loser or you already feel like you're cursed in life and you don't really understand why things are happening the way they're happening or who you truly are or what you are here to do, then you just kind of have that glass half empty mindset in some ways. And that's going to kind of continue to leave you with a glass half full versus understanding that like there are ways to consciously work with the cosmos. There are ways to understand your own chart and accept yourself that then changes your energy. I really believe it changes your energy field. It changes the kind of people you attract. It changes the kind of opportunities you attract. And so you work with your chart consciously And then you work with like the catalysts, the transits, which is like, okay, this is coming up. How am I going to work with this? Right. So like the first thing that I look at when I look at, healing in any capacity through an astrology chart is we're going to go back to the natal chart. And as an evolutionary astrologer, the most important thing that we look at are the nodes. And we sort of say, like, what is the pattern that you have been stuck in? And so, in my own case, when I got a reading from Stephen for the first time, it was like that Memorex, like where like that commercial, like where like the hair got blown back. That's what it felt like. Was like, oh my God, this is what I've been doing. Like, this is why this keeps happening. That, like, I keep attracting people who use me, who abuse me, who, I'm just constantly of service to them. Like, my needs are never fulfilled, right? But that was like that was what I knew karmically. And it was the pattern that was reestablished in my childhood was that I was only lovable as when I was in service to other people. So taking care of my own needs would have meant not being loved, right? Like I was everyone's caretaker. And you can see that in spades in my chart. And so, okay, first, if you can identify the problem, then you can say, like, well, what's the antidote? And in my case, the antidote was like trust, faith, spirituality. It's, having fun. It's being a big personality. It's travel, it's adventure. Like, there was like each person has their own little puzzle that you get to pull apart. That isn't just the nodes, it's the ruler and the nodes and what squares the nodes. I mean, there's like a whole big thing that we've studied, right, Marina? Um, but once you know that, then it's kind of like, okay, I can be conscious of it. So when I'm following in this trap, I can pull myself back. And now that's a lifetime, the nodes are your lifelong journey, right? But that's when the transits come into play that say, okay, here's this next opportunity. Like I'm in my Chiron return now. So there's been a lot of revisiting of, uh, roles, parental roles, and like dealing with shame and anger and things like that within my family unit. But it's so different now than it was in my 20s, right? And so we just have all these different opportunities. So I've been talking a long time.
Oh, you're doing great. You put it so well. And I just want to like sit with what you're saying here because it's so well put and that's so true is that these things that we experience as kind of like, well, I guess I will never get past this limitation, right? I keep repeating this pattern, like, boyfriend after boyfriend or job after job or whatever. And, it has that feeling to it like, well, I guess this is just the way I am. What's wrong with me? Those kinds of things. But when you can see it in the chart, that's actually part of your soul's map. So first of all, you're not crazy. It's written in there. And second of all, there's an answer, right? Like there is, and it's not like it doesn't solve everything like overnight, but it gives you a pathway. It gives you a step to take. It gives you a reframe. It gives you a way to think about it that can help you see things a little bit differently and start to see those possibilities. So I love that.
Thank you. And yeah,
Yeah.
and that's really ultimately like how I approach astrology. And I think that comes directly from Stephen, is there is like a high road and a low road. Like there's a what it looks like when you're on track and what it looks like when you're off track. And I think ultimately we have to forgive ourselves when we fall off track. Addiction is a very challenging thing for people. And addiction can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't just have to be alcoholism or drug addiction. There can be addictions to people and all different kind of patterns. And that's really what we're looking at. We're looking at patterns that don't feel good, that ultimately don't put you in your best light.
Yeah.
But then we acknowledge that the better light actually does exist. And I think that's the piece that is missing when we're younger and don't have these tools, it's like all we know is we're getting it wrong. All
Yeah.
we know is we're bad in some way.
Right.
And and also we see this like with health problems, right? Like people can be told, well, manifest, good health and things like that. And sometimes like
Yeah.
I think it can be healing to just have an acknowledgement that like you can see in a birth chart like that, struggles with health might be part of what you're doing in this lifetime, but giving it some context and saying, and I think this is a really important thing, saying you chose this life. And that to me was one of the most empowering things is to recognize like in my belief system, I chose this life. I chose this set of circumstances, which was very challenging in the beginning and has turned around dramatically. And so it's kind of like we get to take the power back when we recognize like okay we're recreating karmic circumstances so we can break free from them. And
Totally.
then that's when like we become empowered. And then that's the other thing is acknowledging that people who do experience trauma can have like the lowest lows, but they can also have the highest highs because they have that context. And so they really do get to see all the colors of the world and they get to help other people if they so choose to because they've been there. They have empathy. They understand that the world, they have just a little bit more consciousness, I think, once you get to a certain place of healing yourself.
Totally. You get to, yeah, share the gifts and receive the gifts. And, it's not an easy road for sure. So, um, thinking about this Saturn Neptune conjunction and how drastically the energy changes for both Saturn and Neptune from Pisces into Aries, how would you sort of frame that as a possibility for for to open some of these doors to healing?
Yeah. So first, I want to acknowledge that Saturn and Neptune in Pisces has been a challenge for a lot of people, just across the board. It's offered a lot of confusion. It's felt like a lot of endings, which can be very triggering for people that may have abandonment issues or, there's been chaos, right? There's been destruction, grieving, deaths. Like, so I think that this time the higher promise of the Saturn Neptune in Pisces is a very lofty one. And it really came down to spiritual discipline. And it came down to the visualization and the commitment to peace and love and an acknowledgement that of there's something bigger than us and a trust in something greater than us. Okay. That's a really tall order for us humans.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't mean that that is not something that seeds that have been planted in us during that time, because I think they were. And, but I also think what came along with it was a tremendous amount of grief for the death of, institutions and trust and things that we thought we understood and we knew. I don't think the gifts of Saturn Neptune are in any way clear to us as humans right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for me personally, it often felt confusing and chaotic and turbulent, um, as it would with Piscean energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of people like they just checked out, scrolling on the news all day. Like that was kind of my, vice. And so here we go. We are in a new phase now. And so I just do want to acknowledge that even if it's been challenging, I think that there was seeds planted that are that are going to germinate. But it's going to take some time because it's big stuff. It's big heady stuff. And I know that the Buddhist monks they finished their tour, their walking tour and their pilgrimage, whatever the exact word that I should use here is, but they gave a talk in DC about peace and on the day that the very last degree of Saturn, or excuse me, Neptune in Pisces. And I think that was what it's all about. It really is about like giving up the worldly distractions and coming into peace and all of these things. And again, that is just very big for us humans. And so now we have a fresh start, right? And so those things are going to germinate in us, those things are going to touch us. We now have this sort of fresh beginning. I just did a workshop last week with Saturn and Neptune at Aries at 0 degrees, all about what we want to release, because I think it's much easier at this time to release than to know what's coming. I think that we're in this sort of integration of what's to come, but releasing things that were toxic to us, releasing things that, I think we all got an awareness of what wasn't working. We may not yet know what's gonna work, but we know what we don't want.
Mhm.
And so, kind of putting some ritual around that, a ceremony around that, like really kind of saying, like, I declare my independence from these chains in some way. And so, that's to me the Saturn, Neptune in Aries, why this offers such a great time for healing is because there is a new focus on the individual. There's a new focus on you as a person. Not this kind of lofty, heady idea of spirituality and universal love. It is much more like, yeah, I'm here. I want to heal. I want to get things done. It's a cardinal sign. It's ready to go. Like there's more direction in it. And so I think that we can direct that energy into ourselves and kind of recommit to our authentic selves, whether that's through exploring our astrological birth chart, our evolutionary astrology, whether, some people just know, like, I don't want to do this job anymore. They know that. They don't necessarily know what the next job's going to be, but they're ready to like let go of that. And so it's kind of this declaration of like, I need to heal so I can get into alignment with my true authentic self and put one foot in front of the other as we go forward into the unknown this year.
Love it. That's yeah. So this idea of autonomy and independence and declaring our independence and that bigger spiritual picture is being seeded in us as individuals. So it's kind of like, how are you carrying that bigger picture of love and embodying that spirit of healing by the choices you make in your own life?
100%. Yeah. And like I got a comment the other day. Some people said, well, everyone's talking about like individuation, but they're also talking about the collective. And that is, they're both being held right now. And the way I look at it is that we are going to individuate because we know we are a part of the collective. That's the difference. Like the unhealthy Aries is selfishness, narcissism, all about me. But that's not what we're going to focus on. Like what we're going to focus on in this is like, okay, I wasn't allowed to be my authentic self. I was told that person was wrong, or I was told I wasn't a good enough worker, or I was told that I needed to have children even though I never wanted children, or whatever the case may be for your individual, um, journey. And now it's kind of like, we've been through so much, right? I think that when you come through the end of the zodiac and you have that sort of Piscean energy, especially when it's like an outer planet like that, there is this sort of exhaustion. And Neptune transits don't always you don't always know what's happening
Right.
during the Neptune transit. So we've all kind of been in this sort of collective fog of like not really understanding or seeing how things are playing out until hindsight. You can see the Neptune transit in hindsight, like, oh my God, why did I date that guy? Right? Or like, oh, why did I think that investing in that was a good idea? Right? But when you're in it, like, you see things in a dream-like state. And so now we're waking up from the dream and we're seeing things in the rear view mirror, and you can learn so much from that. And so I think that this part of us individuating and recognizing there's nothing wrong with me. This is what has been happening. Oh, I see it more clearly now. Okay, now I can get into alignment because now I'm going to understand more clearly how I'm a part of the big picture. So that's where I think the collective um, piece comes in. Like, we do have Pluto in Aquarius, and that is not a very solitary, that's kind of more like we have to think humanitarian, we have to think big picture. And then we're going to have Uranus moving into Gemini too, and that's kind of more of a like ideas based. We're going into air and fire, right? And so air and fire is just such a different energy than water and earth. And so there's kind of the collective, like things are going to start moving really fast. And I think there's going to be an acceleration of our own healing process if we commit to it.
So what does that look like, right? I think it's always the eternal question, like, what do I do about it? How do I think about this, right? So if for people who are on that healing journey, who and I think, I mean, I agree with you so much, and I think that we really have, those of us who have really been focused on our own personal, like, what's my responsibility for my own healing, um, that we've done so much up to this point. And it's like, if we see what's coming next as this big opportunity to rebirth, reincarnation, new life, new beginnings, new projects, right? What new identity? How do we step into that sense of who I am, who I'm here to be. Nothing wrong with me. I'm here to, what is it, right? What's the,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, so to me, the people that are watching, your interviews likely are astrologers, or they're people that are fans of astrology, right? So they're already kind of on this individuation path. They already have some understanding, but that doesn't necessarily mean that life is easy peasy, right? Like, life isn't easy peasy. So it kind of depends a little bit on the question. It's like, are we talking about like deep rooted trauma from childhood? Or are we talking about like everyday, like it's been a challenge, right? Either way, one of the things that I think is going to naturally happen, because the more I tune into this, the more I'm seeing it everywhere, is especially people who are less conscious, not to be judgmental, but like people who don't focus on consciousness, or like don't think, like they're not as introspective, or, spending as much time. They're so impacted by the cosmic, like the collective cosmos, and they just sort of act unconsciously and things just happen. And I've like seen this like over and over again because I do a lot of mundane astrology on my channel and stuff. And you just kind of recognize, like, because there's these bigger questions like, why is this happening? Why are they behaving that way? And it's like, well, it's projection. That's what this really is. Their projection is unconsciousness, and it's being triggered by these kind of, you know, what's going on in the cosmos. You really can see the story unfold with the outer planets and the very collective energy. And so, kind of like what I would mean by that, like Neptune and Pisces, really did have this whole story. We see what could have been, but if you're not really conscious and meditating or like on a spiritual path, it also can mean, complete escapism and projection and fake news and deception and chaos. And right. So, like, we see this happening. So when what we'll see unconscious energy when Neptune goes into Aries is this kind of more beating the drums of war, right? It's like, I'm angry.
Mhm.
Something's not right. I'm ready to fight. Like, I want to fight. This isn't right, right? But the one thing is, the more conscious energy that we have, we can put into this and sort of say, like, Neptune in Aries is like, what do I want to fight for? Like, there's righteous anger. There is kind of the seeds that have been planted. If like people keep talking about like Neptune and Aries is the Civil War, well, guess what? The lead up to the Civil War was Neptune and Pisces. And so there was a rise in compassion. There was a
Mhm.
rise in consciousness, and seeds were planted around the fact that, hey, maybe we shouldn't like own people, right? And so then it was like, okay, now I'm standing in my own power and strength to say, I don't want that. So
Mhm.
you have to channel things in a very conscious way. Okay, getting back to what you were saying. I'm sorry, I got kind of went on a tangent there.
Oh.
One of the things with Neptune and Pisces was sort of this rise of the guru.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
here we now see like some of these gurus even falling in the Epstein files, right?
Right.
So
Mhm.
it's sort of like the rise of the influencer, the rise of the guru, like putting your beliefs and energy, like wanting the shortcuts, wanting to believe that somebody else has the answers. And, we're starting to hear people talk about spiritual bypassing. No one was talking about spiritual bypassing a year ago, but now they're all of a sudden talking about it because it's not going to work. You can't just manifest a Mercedes. You can't manifest deeply rooted pain to suddenly go away. So, Aries energy, what the collective that we are all experiencing, you, me, everyone, is we got to fix this ourselves. There's no one coming to save me. I'm my own guru. I can, draw on things and ask, does that resonate with me? I can see a little bit clearer what's going to help me. There is a me in Aries. And there is kind of a new spring. So there's like a new energy where you get to say like that doesn't work for me anymore. Like that's not right. That's not who I thought you were. So it's less about depending on somebody else. Now that doesn't mean that you don't ask for help, but it's different. It's not like, oh, if I only straighten my hair and lose 15 pounds and go to this yoga class, I will become enlightened. Like it's a little bit more like, oh, I'm on my own. I'm stripped down. I think that Saturn in Aries is going to strip us down to like say, like, where are you needing to focus on your work? And then I think just unconsciously in a way, like our consciousness is all going to react to this new energy. So that's a long way of saying, I hope I wasn't too wordy, but
No.
basically I wanted to say like I think new opportunities are going to be available. We're going to see new ways and like new paths opening
Yeah.
up. So it's
Yeah.
not magical other than we see things differently and we can start to see, my kitty's going to join us. We'll start to see the path ahead
Yeah.
of us. And
Yeah.
then that is the work.
That's so well put. And the idea of the guru and the hi kitty.
Big one.
um the fantasy, right? It's the fantasy that, oh, this easy answer or this easy fix or that feels good. And we want that feel good thing, especially in Pisces. We really like that was what we were up against. And this is such different energy. And I think the clarity, like you were saying, the ability to see the path in front of us, like to start to know, oh, this is what I need to do. Oh, this is the right decision for me. And that it will have a lot less nebulousness to it.
We've lacked focus in the sky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a lot more focus. Uranus going into Gemini can be a little bouncy, tough on the
Mm-hmm.
nervous system. But if we're really focusing on the Saturn Neptune in Aries, I think it's a very focused energy. And I think of it like, if you know, I want to go back to the yoga example where like maybe you're in a yoga class with a guru and like, you're just really like in awe of them and you wanted to be like everybody else in the room. And this energy is more like, okay, I want to sweat. I am ready to get on the mat. I don't care what anyone else is doing around me. Like there's kind of just like this energy to just like put forth and like, you know, get the best results that you can for yourself.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit like more Spartan. It's a little
Mhm.
harsher.
Yeah.
And there is kind of like, I remember somebody who really did help me tremendously. I spent a lot of my 20s drinking and feeling sorry for myself for what had transpired in my life. And then, I dated an alcoholic and then, I was going to marry him. So, and then he cheated on me, like we all have our stories, right?
Yeah.
And I remember by the time I hit my early 30s, like I already was into astrology. I understood I was on a better path, but there was like a meditation teacher and he was sort of telling me, he was like, what is wrong with you? Like, you're just going to carry this around with you your whole life? Like, get over it. Like, stop. It was like really harsh because like,
Uh-huh.
it was like one of those circles and like, I'm crying and like, and it was just like, dude, there's nothing wrong with you. Could you stop crying about it? And like, you're 30 something years old. And it was like, oh, like I
Mhm.
knew, like I was conditioned to feel sorry for myself in a way.
Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
that I mean, I had a reason to, right? Like, I don't want to
Right.
be harsh to anybody, but it didn't
Totally.
matter. It
Yeah.
just doesn't matter. And that's what this Aries energy says is like, you going to carry that around for the rest of your life or are you going to get on with it? And like, that was a
Mhm.
gift to me because I was
Mhm.
like,
Good.
wow, he is right. Like, I'm the one carrying this around.
And you saw that new possibility in that moment, that it opened a door for you to see things differently. And that, well, I
Yeah,
mean,
and I think that's the energy we're in. I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
and do I think that this is all going to be super easy and all that? No, I actually think it's going to be very challenging. But I think that we are going to have so much more focus and clarity that it's going to feel less challenging because it's more energizing
Mhm.
because we're actually accomplishing something rather than swimming around in a bunch of tears.
Yeah, right. Right. I was saying something the other day about how it's just harder to see that impact. It's like, well, took this action. Did it land anywhere? I don't know. Right. Like
Oh my gosh,
now,
right.
yeah, like now it's going to feel different. It's going to be like, and I'm actually seeing um, a lot more clarity already, just in the way that people are talking. It's like, oh, no, this is a hard boundary.
Sorry.
Hi, butt of my cat.
My God, he's a tabby Maine Coon mix. So he's like this
Oh.
giant, like 20-pound cat. Sorry, everybody.
It's adorable. Um, yeah, it's like this clarity of like, no, I'm not going to tolerate this, or yes, this is what needs to happen, like in a much more definitive way than we have
A
been
hundred
seeing in
percent. I
recent
think it's just about it's going to give us focus, it's going to give us clarity, and it's going to give us like challenging lessons that then we can make progress. Like that's exactly
yeah.
like, the other thing, it's all kind of happening at the same time, but like Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius is finally getting its footing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it only
Right.
like was in for a couple degrees and like then it like sort of retrograded, right? And like so it's like starting to get its footing.
Mm-hmm.
And as it gets its footing, then you see that more clearly too.
Totally.
And there's individuation within the collective in that. And so, going back to like what would be my advice for somebody who is, who's been struggling with trauma or is being re-triggered by a lot of the things that are coming up in the news and things like that. I would say, March is a time for preparation. an understanding that we have been through traumas. We've been through traumas recently. We're being re-triggered in a lot of ways. And now the energy is changing. We're starting to come back together, and there's going to be more of a mission. And so you in your own individual life, the more you can do your own personal healing work. And part of that is around what is your unique astrological birth chart. What is your map? What is your role? What is your north node? It's not the same as mine. It's not the same as your neighbors. We're not all the same. We don't have the same role to play in this changing world. The more you can focus on the higher purpose of why you are here, the further you are going to go in this next exciting phase that we're all kind of embarking upon.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. So we have that from the Neptune in Pisces, which is the spiritual of all spiritual, right? It's like the ultimate capacity. If we are ever going to connect with unconditional love, that is it. So feeling that unconditional love for ourselves and that connection to a higher purpose and what our souls really want, to bring that then into our Aries embodiment and impact and decision making and all of
And
that.
we're seeing it too, right? Like,
Mhm.
we're seeing people protecting their neighbors. We're seeing people, risking their own lives
Totally.
for a cause or for the sake of, strangers, really. So
Yeah.
that's some very deep compassion that those people a year ago may not have recognized what was being born in them. And Aries is, brings out our courage. It puts us in circumstances and situations where we have to take a stand. And so again, like when we're in a Neptune transit, we may not see what's really being um, what's happening. It's hard to see, but we're seeing the fruition of it. So you may have been undergoing a very unconscious transformation. And, you know, without some of the more, the empathetic movements like Black Lives Matters or the Me Too movement, but without some of those things, maybe people wouldn't have some of the perspectives they're starting to have now. So really, there is kind of a having faith that there is a reason why things are unfolding the way they're unfolding. March especially is like kind of a big trust month, unfortunately. Another one of these because there's again a big pileup in Pisces. We
Mhm.
just have to recognize there's, somewhere we're going and we're on this roller coaster, and you can't stop the roller coaster mid-ride. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
We're on the roller coaster. So let's just, get through it and try to, keep our sanity. And then
Mhm.
know, like when the roller coaster's over, like, wow, you've got an adrenaline rush. Like who you are. You've just accomplished something. You know, that's kind of where I think we're headed.
Yeah, totally. And something you said too made me, just want to bring up this point that if any planets you have in Aries, especially early Aries for this phase of things, are going to be have that Neptune transit. And so the Aries way that you are used to being in that Aries mode is going to be kind of obscured. And the fog of Neptune comes in, and it's like, well, the way I used to do things doesn't work anymore. And I'm being asked to step up into a new way of being myself, a new way of seeing myself and taking action. And the ultimate, like you're saying, in the long run, we're going to look back and we're going to see that is when I really understood at deeper levels why and how I can take action authentically and for what purpose. But we can't see that while we're in the middle of it.
No, and so Neptune is, I think, what is it, a 14-year cycle?
Yeah.
And so if you're an Aries sun, you are going to have Neptune on your sun. And so when Neptune comes to your sun, the biggest thing you want to do is, the the high road is kind of, be your own guru and, get out there and like do kind of like meditative runs or meditative swims, like, kind of don't totally check out and let your life fall apart. That's really all Neptune on the sun, I think, is asking you to do. It's asking you to soften into the part of yourself that is that is tethered to something bigger than
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
However, you have to get there. And for Aries, a lot of times it is through athleticism, I find. So,
Mhm.
I know like Aries people that are just like, they can go out for like a 10-mile run and like, what? Like, I can't do a half a mile run and I'm about to die. Like, so Neptune just kind of just know that you can kind of get into that meditative healing space. But Saturn will also be on your sun sooner. And
Mhm. Right.
unless you're like at a zero Aries or something. Saturn on your sun is going to ask you to, it's going to come first,
Mhm.
probably. And it's going to basically say like it's going to ask you to grow up. And
Mhm.
so in some ways you're getting a gift because Saturn touching your sun like wants you to work hard. It wants you to grow up. It's going to say like this is you're in boot camp now. Like you're in my training and so it's almost like
Mhm.
it's like you after like the hard training then you can kind of go to wizarding school.
Totally. Yes.
Then you kind of get
You're
to learn
ready.
more the magic and like you get to
Totally.
kick back a little bit and just go in your like zone out runs. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, up to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
So I think
gosh.
for
Yeah.
anybody that's going through a hard time right now or wants to heal familial trauma, you know, look and see where Saturn Neptune is in your individual chart, what house it's in, what aspects it's making. So if you have an eighth house Saturn Neptune, yeah, get thee to therapy, like get thee to the shaman. Like, really like this is a fresh opportunity for you to like go deep and bring some of that stuff back up into the light. If it's in your third house, it's time to find your voice. It's time to take a risk on, your ideas and the way that you communicate. In the seventh house, it's relationships, right? Like, so you can go around and figure out where it is in your individual chart, and that's going to give you a recipe for empowerment too.
Beautiful. Totally. Yes. Oh my gosh, this is so fascinating and helpful, and just to put words to a lot of the things we're feeling and to kind of label it. And is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I think that there is kind of this incredibly magic time right now. Like I think that
Mhm.
there is something about the transits that we are about to embark on that are much more optimistic. And I guess going back to that empowerment, if you empower, like if you kind of take a stand and you go from that perspective of victim to survivor, and that
Mhm.
to me is Pisces versus Aries.
Mhm.
It's empowering. And that
Mhm.
empowerment then can allow you to magically transform things that you felt like never could be transformed before. And so that's what I would, I guess, leave people with.
Yeah, I love that. And Survivor really, like, from that perspective of how strong you are, just like the resilience and the strength and the power that that gives you to help other people and to see yourself differently and to see yourself as capable. I mean, just so many things can flow from that new self definition.
Right. And
Yeah.
and you can't do it alone. Like so it's about individuation, but at this and it's also about your unique path, but you don't have to do it alone. And I think that this is going to be a less lonely time too. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of people have felt hopeless. I think a lot of people have felt lonely. I think COVID was a real tipping point for a lot of people. Neptune and Pisces was addiction all over the place. I mean, whose life wasn't touched by someone who was had addiction issues? So I just think that like we're shifting gears into a more optimistic time where we're going to be less lonely. And I think that in itself will be healing.
Mm, beautiful. We need each other. We need community, and I think we're really realizing that. And
And yeah,
speaking
so
of,
thank you for like
yeah,
hosting these kind of conversations,
yeah,
right? Because like Marina and I, we just met briefly at a conference and then a friend of mine suggested me to her and she's never even watched my YouTube channel. So, and now we'll follow each other. So that's, kind
yeah,
of how it starts.
yeah, and yeah, the networking that it's just beautiful. Yeah. So, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your thoughts and just blessing us with this with these gifts. The ways of seeing ourselves itself is a gift. So, thank you. And your website is
It's lawlessastrology.com.
yeah,
And I teach classes and have workshops. I'm actually going to do a workshop where I'm going to look at charts and things like that in April around family trauma and like family dynamics, because I do think this is an important time for people to have, kind of like a little portal for healing. And yeah, and you can catch me on my YouTube channel.
beautiful. All right. And transformationalastrology.com is where you can sign up for a free account to get notified of this and future events. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for being here. And thank you, Dabney.